bum ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum bum bum ba-da-dum bum bum da-da-dum bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum bum bum ba-da-dum bum bum da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum bum ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum bum ba-dum bum ba-da-da-dum bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum ba-da-da-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. My name is Michael Knipp, and today I am going to be reviewing The Light of the Jedi, the first adult novel in the High Republic set of Star Wars novelizations. And I will go ahead and preface this video with my experience with the Star Wars series. I've watched all of the Star Wars movies. I've watched very little of the Star Wars TV shows, including The Mandalorian. I haven't seen The Mandalorian. I've played lots of Star Wars video games. I played the Star Wars trading card game, the one that came out back during the prequel trilogy. I know it's bad to talk about that stuff now. And thus my experience with Star Wars is, I don't know, does that make me a casual Star Wars fan? I'm not sure what you want to make of that. But I've never read a Star Wars novel before. Growing up, I always thought they seemed interesting, but it was not something that I ever delved into myself. I had lots of friends that read different, sections of the Star Wars novels, and then, Disney came along and destroyed all of the Star Wars canon. They threw it all out. And frankly, even with just all of the new movie canon, there's too much Star Wars books. There's too many. I can't keep up, but I've always wanted to. So I decided when I first heard about the High Republic, the concept of this High Republic, that I was going to try to use this as a springboard jumping on point to get into the Star Wars novelizations. I don't think I'm the only person that tried to do this. I think that Disney sort of designed this method to jump into the series. At least that's the concept I'm getting. I don't know. This is a whole new era. We've never explored this before. And so this is where I decided that I was going to jump on. Now you sort of know my experience with the series history. So now I'm going to explain my thoughts on this book, The Light of the Jedi. Now, I have a lot of mixed feelings with this one because the presentation of the story sort of drags it down for me a little bit. This book is sort of presented in a rolling POV perspective. Like, it's a multiple POV book similar to a lot of the high fantasy that I normally read. But unlike something like the Stormlight Archive or The Fateful and the Fallen or Leviathan Wakes or something like that, this one feels a lot closer to the Tom Clancy book that I read, The Hunt for Red October, because to me, this very much is not a character-focused book. It is a plot-focused book. And so it is telling the plot from the perspective of, in the beginning of this book, a new character's POV every single chapter. And this continues for a long time before you sort of cycle back around to characters that you've already seen before. In fact, I think the first time that it happens, you're actually in a different character's perspective in the scenario of the first character. So like, it's the same set of characters, but you're exploring it from the POV of a different character, because I think the focus of this book is to tell the plot. And so you're sort of bouncing around to different characters who have more relevant information for the plot at that point. Similar to the Tom Clancy book that I read. It also means that you're going to end up with a lot of one-off POVs because there are characters that see something important that aren't relevant to the main story. Frankly, I think that there are POVs that you get that are one-off that are maybe not necessary, but the sheer number of point of view switching that we're doing made it really hard for me to attach with any of the characters. And at the beginning of every single chapter, I sort of had to reacquaint myself to what point of view we're dealing with now and where they've gone in the story. I think this is sort of a cool idea. In fact, I've had this idea for like writing a plot this way myself, to where instead of following a character or a set of characters, you follow the plot through a bunch of different characters. I don't know if it really worked for me though, because I need a little bit more character work in the story. In fact, the only character work that gets done is something that's relevant for that section of the plot. Now, you do revisit some of the same characters multiple times throughout this story, and so there is a little bit more depth to some characters than others, but it's not the kind of character work that I typically love. And honestly, because there's not a lot of nuance and depth there, I feel like the characters are mostly archetypes of some sort, tropes of some sort that fall into a very specific line with like maybe one quirky personality trait each. And I'm going to use this talking point to springboard into the fact fact that this book has really very little nuance overall. It's considered an adult novel, and I am not the type of reader that wants everything to be gray. I'm also the type of reader that is okay with some really good guys and some really bad guys. But this is maybe the most extreme version of that I've ever seen. I don't know why I'm surprised, because it is Star Wars, and Star Wars is very much the light side and the dark side. But it felt so obvious here because the villains are just like super bad and the good guys are all just super good, and the bad guys are sometimes so bad that it's hard to really understand their, like, I feel like this is the perfect book for people that don't like mustache twirling villains to point to say like, there's literally no nuance in this book. So this book is like an adult book in the sense that a movie that is rated PG is technically not for children, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not really what I was expecting or kind of wanting. Sometimes the older that I get and the more that I pursue things in the Star Wars universe, the more I realize maybe I sort of had a different version of what I thought Star Wars was than what Star Wars actually is, because like I imagine the Jedi to be these like mysterious space wizards, samurais, and there's a lot of gravitas involved. I imagine a lot of like global politicking that's super complex and the struggle is real, but this is not the type of story that you're going to get. And part of the like gravitas of the Jedi is going to come with the fact that we are in an era where Jedi are very prevalent. There's a lot of them and they are widely respected throughout the universe. So some of the things that make these space wizards special is not really going to feel as strong because they're all over the place. They're using the Force all over the place, so it doesn't really feel magical. As I said, there's a ton of them, so they're not rare. And the sort of way that the like Jedi orders are handled and the Jedi Knights and the Jedi Padawans and the Jedi Masters stuff is handled, it doesn't really feel like it holds a lot of weight. Like I want it to be deeper and more serious than I feel like it comes across in this book. And I'm not sure if that's something that this book just didn't nail or if that's never the way that Star Wars was. I just don't know. So yeah, there's not a lot of depth to the characters. The plot is not super deep. The world has some interesting things going on. Especially by the end of the book, there's some world building that may be slightly more complex than it initially seems, but not a lot more complicated than it normally seems. And yeah, part of the stuff I wish was a little bit more serious is kind of a little bit silly. I don't mean like silly, I just mean it's like a PG thing instead of like maybe a PG-13. And let me kind of explain some of that, and like it's gonna dip into the corny. There's a slight spoiler, and this is literally just a spoiler for a character name. There's a character in this book whose nickname is Wet Bub, and he's supposed to be like this super hardcore fighter slash hacker, and he's so good at fighting that he will finish a battle covered in blood, so they call him Wet Bub. It's like, yeah, technically it's dark because he kills so many people, but also he's a Gungan whose name is Wet Bub. And if you didn't laugh at that, maybe this book is for you. But was this book for me? I will say I enjoyed it, but I did not love it. It is the type of story that because you're constantly switching these characters, the chapters are short, which I think helps move the story along at a relatively quick pace. Generally speaking, I don't think you knew information too long before characters in the story figured it out, and there was a constant stream of new information coming to the different characters as you were flipping around. So while I struggled with the format and it never fully connected, I also enjoyed my read. But because I was never as invested as I wish I was in the book, it was very easy during those short chapters to put down instead of being the type of book that I wanted to just sort of binge through. And the thing is, the story really isn't that complicated, which I guess, given the nature of like constantly switching characters from different point of views, maybe that's a good thing that it wasn't super complicated because it might have been harder to understand. This book sort of had to accomplish a lot of things with setting it in a new era of the Star Wars universe, as well as trying to introduce us to a ton of characters at once and establish a lot of different things. So I think that maybe it was just overly ambitious with what it was trying to do, so it potentially lowered the depth. Another element where the depth was lowered is the writing. Some of the like prose and specific turns of phrase were a little bit cringeworthy. I feel like even a first-time sci-fi reader can understand that the pilot at the control deck can do lots of different things to maneuver the ship very adeptly. Like they were explaining some of the most basic sci-fi concepts as if they were new. Like that a pilot controls the spaceship via a cockpit. Like there's very, very basic things that are explained in a way that is probably unnecessary, but it's explained in a way as if you were a child. Now, I feel like I've spent a lot of time talking about negative things about the book. Like I said, I did enjoy it. This on the star rating scale would be a 3-star read for me. I'm not going to lie and say I didn't enjoy it. When the Jedi were able to accomplish something good, I cheered for them. When the bad guys did some of the bad guy stuff, I also thought that was cool too. And once I did a little bit of research and confirmed with some people from my Discord that the next book is going to be dealing with some of the same characters again, so we actually might get to see a little bit more depth here, and maybe we could see a little bit more focused of a story. I was definitely interested in continuing along with the Light of the Jedi series. I think the next book comes out this summer. So yeah, instead of negative, I want to probably emphasize that it's just very light. This is Star Wars light. We get to see the beginnings of the world building of this era of Star Wars. We get to see a little bit of the framework for characters that could be interesting if we get to spend more time with them in future books. The end of the book teases us with a little bit of a deeper and more overarching plot for the villains as well. So yeah, I think that basically wraps up my thoughts. Would I recommend this book to the hardcore Star Wars fans? I don't know if I would recommend this book. I feel like you already know whether it's for you or not. To someone who wants to jump into Star Wars for the first time, is this the best place to start? I don't know if it's the best place to start, but I feel like it's basic enough that you could definitely start here. I think if you're looking for a complex sci-fi on any level, this is not that type of book. But if you're looking for something that's easy to get through, a relatively pulpy thing to read, then yeah, this I think fits the bill. Have you guys read The Light of the Jedi? Are you interested in reading it? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Also, if you like this video, please remember to leave a thumbs up down there on the video. Please, that does help. If you'd like to see more reviews from me, including a review of the next Star Wars book that comes out this summer, please remember to hit that subscribe button. And of course, if you hit the bell, you'll get notified every time I post a new video. If you'd like to discuss this book, this review, or anything else really bookish in general with me on a deeper level, there is a link down below to a Discord server. It's free for everybody to join. And I honestly have so much fun chatting with the people there every day. If you'd like to support what I do here on the channel and get a couple other perks as well, there is a link down below to a Patreon, as well as a link to a merch store where you could buy some dumb t-shirts that I made, as well as a link to a merch store. I'm curious to anyone watching, what is the general temperature for Star Wars at this point? Like, I feel The Mandalorian is a hot show. It's really big, but I personally felt like with the people that I know, the excitement for Star Wars is way more cool than I think Disney wishes it was. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on Star Wars? Are you still super excited? Are you still super into it? Do you like any of the other canon novelizations that are out right now? I know the Star Wars fan base is super passionate. Anyway, I can't wait to see you guys again soon in the next video. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired.